It is officially the Christmas season. If you're like me, this is my favorite time of year during the winter. I love Christmas. I love the lights. I love decorating. I love all of that. And I grew up on a farm in Kansas with a very simple, old fashioned Christmas. Let's see if we can capture some of that spirit today. We had the same decorations my entire life. We had the same 4-foot tree my entire life. And it was my job to decorate that tree and then put the final touches on that tree, which was tinsel every single year. Tinsel has gone by the wayside. If you have pets, it's not something that they recommend you have around. So a lot of people have just stopped using tinsel, but it was a really big deal when I was growing up. You never decorated your tree without the finishing touch of tinsel. We would always choose a sock of our own out of our drawer to hang for Santa, and he would fill it always with an orange, an apple, peanuts in the shell, which were the best. I still do that for my kids, and they always look forward to that. And I always had a giant peppermint stick in there growing up. And mom would break that up into pieces in a little bowl, and then we could eat that sparingly. We never went gung ho with candy. It just wasn't the thing back then. It was considered a special treat, and we would have like a piece or two of it a day that she had broken up into tiny pieces. Now, this sounds like a very simple Christmas, I know, but it was a magical time of year, and we always looked forward to it. As we've gone on over the years, people have built and built and built on making Christmas bigger and bigger, more materialistic. But as the saying goes, life is not complicated. It is we who make it complicated. Thanksgiving and Christmas, my mom would make the traditional holiday cake. It was a sponge cake, and we don't hear about sponge cakes too often anymore. We hear a lot about sponge cakes that are now Twinkies or sponge cakes that maybe are a form of angel food cake. But this was a homemade sponge cake with a boiled icing that was a caramel flavor with toasted coconut. Now, I never liked coconut, but I loved this cake. We all loved this cake. Now, boiled frostings go clear back to the 1920s and the 1930s. So, this is a recipe that came down through the generations, and my mom made it. And I was so upset when I thought I didn't have that recipe. But when I was going through my cookbook one day, I found it written in her handwriting. And so I still have that recipe. And so I'm going to share that family recipe that has a lot of history to it with you today. So I'm going to share with you the recipe, and we're going to go over it because I just love the way they wrote instructions back then. It's a hot milk sponge cake that needs 4 eggs, 2 cups sugar, 2 cups flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, a half of a teaspoon of salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla, 1/3 of a teaspoon of lemon juice, and 1 cup of hot milk. You beat the eggs. You gradually add the sugar, beating until fluffy and light colored. You add flour sifted with baking powder and salt. You beat well and add the flavoring. You heat the milk almost to a boil, beating slightly, and pour at once into an ungreased 9 by 10-inch tube pan or long pan and bake at 350 for 40 to 45 minutes. Then the boiled frosting is 1 cup of white sugar, a half of a cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of milk, 4 tablespoons of butter or margarine. Back then they called it oleo. You mix that well. You cook at a low boil until it thickly coats the spoon. And then when a pass across the pan makes a soft division in that frosting, it is done. And you frost the cake A few minutes after it's baked, you sprinkle with coconut and return it to the oven to slightly brown the coconut. I love simple, old fashioned decorating ideas. And I think my mother was the first person to traditionalize making a 2 or 3 o'clock dinner on a holiday. Ornaments were hung on the tree. They were the same ornaments that we had my entire life. And we didn't have garland when I was growing up. But I remember when we first got our first garland, it was so thin and so tiny and so cheap. And the little pieces would fall off of it. And you would just try to hide them when you decorated the tree. Now garland is huge and has all kinds of fun things that hang off of it and are attached to it and is next to indestructible. But back then it was so thin, so cheap, so small, but it was kind of like tinsel on a string, and it was a really big deal. I remember we had a gold one and a silver one that I could pick from. They didn't have any other colors mixed in. They were just very, very simple. Other than that garland that entered our decoration box, that was the only new decorations that we got. We used the same decorations every year. We put them away carefully and we got them out the next year. It wasn't this change of season every year that we see now at Christmas. We didn't go and walk through the Christmas section and pick different colors for our tree or different ornaments for our tree. We didn't rotate things out and dispose of the decorations that we had. They were considered cherished and priceless, and things were just not changed. They were the same predictable ornaments every single year, but there was a magic that went with that because you knew that only that time of year did you get to see the things that you cherished the most. And you couldn't wait to get them back out for that month in December to enjoy them. Now we look at so many ways that we can change the decor in our homes, change the Christmas scene in our homes, add decorations that we didn't have last year, or change the color scheme. But it wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was very predictable, but it was still magical. And I wish people could understand that this was not a disappointment growing up. It was something we looked forward to. Many people now would say that sounds so sad. We go out every year and pick new bulbs and new lights and a new tree, but it wasn't like that. And I think that's part of the reason why we were able to save money on a very low income. And it's part of the reason that I am still able to save money on a low income is because I take care of those ornaments. I have the same ones that I had from when I first got out on my own throughout raising my children, and they are still the same ornaments when I get those totes out every year. They're still cherished, they're still magical. And my tree may look a little different because I may choose some of the different ones in the totes each year, but they don't need to be replaced or upgraded. I think we forget that things are reusable sometimes and that those things make memories and traditions rather than doing something different each and every time. I definitely have more Christmas items than I grew up with. That is my favorite time of year. And I have a village that I absolutely love. And I have all kinds of little houses, a police station, a church. I think I have a Santa's workshop, all kinds of things like that. And they came from Dollar General back in the day when you could buy lit up village house for about $5 to $10. Now I've seen they cost about $60 and mine still work. They may not be super fancy, but now they're considered vintage and I love setting up my Christmas village. This is something that I can set up and have up for 2 or 3 months during the winter and enjoy. And it's one of my favorite things. I remember seeing these villages when I was younger and always wishing that we could have just one of those little houses that would light up around Christmas time. And now I have a whole village that could not easily be replaced, and I am not letting go of that. I hope you've enjoyed this little walk down memory lane with me. I've enjoyed it with you as well. Let me know some of your favorite memories from Christmas, some of the simple things that mean the most to you, even still. I hope to see you in the next video. If this video has brought you any value today, please give me a thumbs up, and I hope to see you soon.